Imagine a war that lasted nearly half a century, shaped the modern world, and reached into every continent. Yet most of its battles never appeared on the front pages. The Cold War is often remembered as a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, a struggle of nuclear threats and political speeches. But beneath the headlines and beyond the televised summits, real wars were fought in jungles, deserts, and mountains. Soldiers died, governments fell, and entire nations were reshaped, while the superpowers denied direct involvement. These were the hidden battles of the Cold War, the conflicts newspapers barely covered, where the world's future was decided in silence. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay updated with our latest videos. When World War II ended in 1945, the Allies quickly turned into rivals. Washington and Moscow emerged as superpowers with competing visions for the post-war world. Capitalism versus communism. Democracy versus one-party rule. Instead of clashing openly, they waged a global chess match. Direct conflict risked nuclear annihilation, so both sides used proxies, covert operations, and limited wars to expand their influence. From Asia to Africa to Latin America, the Cold War became a series of smaller, deadly conflicts that often escaped mainstream attention. One of the earliest and bloodiest was the Greek Civil War, 1946 to 1949. As Greece struggled to rebuild after Nazi occupation, communist guerrillas fought government forces backed by Britain and later the United States. American aid under the Truman Doctrine helped the government prevail, marking the first major U.S. intervention of the Cold War. Though largely forgotten today, the conflict killed more than 150,000 people and set the template for future proxy wars. In the 1950s, the focus shifted to Asia. The Korean War is often called the Forgotten War, despite claiming millions of lives. But even less known is the Laotian Civil War, sometimes called the Secret War. As the U.S. fought in neighboring Vietnam, the CIA waged a covert campaign in Laos, training Hmong tribesmen to battle communist Pathet Lao forces and disrupt the Ho Chi Minh Trail. From 1964 to 1973, American aircraft dropped more than 2 million tons of bombs on Laos, more than were dropped on Germany and Japan combined during World War II. Yet the operation remained largely hidden from the American public until years later. Africa became another silent battleground. In the newly independent Congo, a power struggle erupted after Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba sought Soviet assistance. Fearing communist influence in Central Africa, the CIA supported rival factions and reportedly played a role in Lumumba's 1961 assassination. The chaos led to years of civil war and the rise of dictator Mobutu Sese Seko, a staunch U.S. ally. Similar struggles unfolded in Angola, where, after Portugal's withdrawal in 1975, the Soviet-backed MPLA fought U.S. and South African-supported rebels in a brutal war that lasted until 2002. Cuban troops sent by Fidel Castro fought thousands of miles from home in one of the Cold War's most intense but least publicized conflicts. The Middle East, too, became a shadowy arena. During the 1950s and 1960s, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated Operation Ajax in Iran, toppling Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh after he nationalized the oil industry. This covert coup restored the Shah to power, securing Western oil interests, but planting the seeds of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. In Afghanistan during the 1980s, the United States armed the Mujahideen to resist the Soviet invasion. Billions of dollars in weapons, including advanced Stinger missiles, flowed to Afghan fighters, some of whom later formed extremist groups that would shape global conflicts long after the Cold War ended. Latin America witnessed some of the most secretive battles. In Guatemala, 1954, the CIA overthrew President Jacobo Arbenz after he introduced land reforms that threatened U.S. corporate interests and raised fears of communist influence. In Chile, 1973, while covert U.S. operations helped destabilize the government of Socialist President Salvador Allende, paving the way for General Augusto Pinochet's brutal dictatorship. In Nicaragua, the U.S. supported the Contra rebels against the leftist Sandinista government, funding a guerrilla war that became infamous during the Iran-Contra scandal. Across the continent, death squads, coups, and insurgencies unfolded under the shadow of superpower rivalry, often hidden from public scrutiny. Some Cold War conflicts burned hot without ever being declared wars. On the icy Korean demilitarized zone, U.S. and North Korean forces engaged in deadly skirmishes long after the 1953 armistice. In Berlin, rival spies fought an invisible war of tunnels and wiretaps. In Cuba, Operation Mongoose launched sabotage missions after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. And in Vietnam, covert operations in Laos and Cambodia extended the conflict far beyond the borders officially acknowledged by Washington. Technology added another layer of secrecy. The race for intelligence produced sophisticated spy satellites, stealth aircraft, and daring reconnaissance missions. In 1960, the Soviet Union shot down an American U-2 spy plane, revealing a network of high-altitude surveillance that had been mapping Soviet military sites for years. Submarines prowled the world's oceans, tapping undersea cables and shadowing enemy fleets. Incidents like the 1968 sinking of the Soviet submarine K-129 and the U.S. attempt to recover it with the disguised ship Glomar Explorer remained classified for decades. While newspapers focused on speeches and summits, millions of people lived the Cold War as a daily reality. In divided countries like Korea, Vietnam, and Germany, families were separated, economies distorted, and societies militarized. In Africa and Latin America, entire generations were caught in conflicts fueled by foreign weapons and ideology. For those on the ground, the Cold War was not cold at all. It was a series of hot wars fought without the world's full attention. These hidden battles also left lasting legacies. Laos remains the most heavily bombed country per capita in history, with unexploded ordnance still killing civilians decades later. Afghanistan descended into civil war after the Soviet withdrawal, creating power vacuums that extremist groups exploited. Coups in Iran, Guatemala, and Chile shaped regional politics for generations, breeding mistrust of foreign intervention. Even today, tensions in places like Korea and Ukraine echo strategies first tested in these shadow conflicts. Why did so many of these wars escape widespread coverage at the time? Part of the answer lies in deliberate secrecy. Superpowers preferred to operate in the gray zone, where plausible deniability allowed them to influence outcomes without triggering direct confrontation. Governments censored the press, classified documents, and used proxies to mask their involvement. Journalists faced danger in remote conflict zones and struggled to verify rumors amid propaganda from all sides. By the time the truth emerged, public attention had shifted elsewhere. Historians continue to unearth documents that shed light on these hidden conflicts. Declassified CIA cables, KGB archives, and memoirs of former operatives reveal a world of covert deals and calculated risks. They show how the Cold War was not just a nuclear standoff, but a global struggle waged through local wars, each one shaping the balance of power in ways the public rarely understood at the time. These forgotten battles challenge our understanding of history. They remind us that world-changing events often unfold far from the spotlight, in villages and jungles where soldiers fight and die with little recognition. They show that peace between superpowers can mask brutal violence elsewhere, and that the price of geopolitical rivalry is often paid by those with no say in the conflict. As we reflect on the Cold War today, it's easy to focus on dramatic moments like the Cuban Missile Crisis or the fall of the Berlin Wall. But the real story includes countless untold struggles that never made the headlines. Wars where ordinary people bore extraordinary burdens while the world looked away. If this journey into the hidden front lines of the Cold War intrigued you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold chapters of history. Which of these forgotten conflicts surprised you most? And what lessons do they hold for today's world, where great powers still compete in shadowy ways?